Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Irrigation. Irrigation is defined as the artificial application of water to soil or land for farming purposes. The importance of irrigation can be seen in its ability to soften the soil for easy tillage operations, to increase yield of crops. Irrigation also makes early planting possible. It enables a farmer to cultivate one crop twice or thrice on the same piece of land in a year. It cools the soil and the atmosphere, and it helps to reduce salt concentration in the soil. We have three types of irrigation: the surface irrigation, the subsurface irrigation, and the overhead irrigation. The overhead irrigation has two types of irrigation, which include the sprinkler irrigation and the drip irrigation. The surface irrigation. In the surface irrigation, water from rivers, dams, or streams flow along the surface of the land to farmland. This can be in form of channels, flooding, counter ditch, furrow, basin, etc. The most important condition for surface irrigation to be efficient is for the land to have a gentle slope towards the direction of the farmland. In surface irrigation, water is evenly distributed over the farmland. It is very cheap, and water can easily be controlled except in flooding. But surface irrigation cannot be practiced where the land is hilly. It cannot be successful in sandy soil. The volume of water, especially in flooding, may be difficult to control, and some crops may not tolerate heavy flooding. Subsurface irrigation. In subsurface irrigation system, water is applied below the soil surface by maintaining an artificial water level at certain depth. This, however, depends on the type of crop and the nature of the soil. In all cases, perforated pipes are used to deliver water within the soil, and this water gets to the roots of crops through capillary action. Subsurface irrigation system is suitable for soil that has low water holding capacity and high infiltration rate. In subsurface irrigation system, evaporation rate is greatly reduced. Water level at optimum depths for crops needed at different growth stage can be maintained in subsurface irrigation system. But in subsurface irrigation system, water which has a high salt content cannot be used. It requires some level of expertise or technical know-how, and it is a bit expensive. Overhead irrigation. Overhead irrigation system is a system whereby water is supplied to the farmland above the surface of the soil. Overhead irrigation exists in two forms: the sprinkler irrigation and the drip irrigation. In the sprinkler irrigation system, water is sprayed from the air and allowed to fall on the ground surface somehow as rainfall through nozzles under high pressure. Pumping machine which operates under high pressure is needed to pump water into irrigation pipes which are spaced to ensure even distribution of water. In the sprinkler overhead irrigation, amount of water supplied is regulated. It economizes the use of water. It is suitable for high arid lands with high evapotranspiration rate. Soluble fertilizers, herbicides, etc. can be applied through the irrigation water. And the sprinkler overhead irrigation can be used for all crops except tree crops like cocoa. The disadvantages of sprinkler irrigation is that it is costly to operate. High wind velocity may prevent distribution of water. A stable water supply is required. It requires high power to produce the high pressure needed to pump water into pipes, and there is lack of sufficient technical know-how on sprinkler irrigation operation. The drip overhead irrigation. Drip, also known as trickle irrigation, is a new method of irrigation where water is discharged through nozzles called emitters or drippers at selected spacing to deliver water to the soil surface near the base of the plant. With this system, loss of water through deep percolation, runoff and evaporation is greatly reduced. Drip irrigation is economical in the use of water. It reduces salt concentration in the root zone. Fertilizers can be applied through this system. It operates with lower line pressure and it is the most appropriate system needed in arid and semi-arid areas. Disadvantages of drip overhead irrigation is that it is very expensive to set up and maintain. Water cannot be distributed in a slopy farmland evenly. Water with high salt content cannot be used. There are some problems associated with irrigation. They include inadequate water supply for irrigation. Irrigation equipment is expensive. Pests from dry surroundings may invade and damage crops in irrigated land. Vectors of diseases like snails, sesafly breed freely in irrigated areas. Lack of adequate technical know-how on irrigation, on the establishment and operations of irrigation scheme. Another problem is that excessive dissolution of salt in irrigated water prevents proper growth of crops. It disturbs the free movement of farm machinery and it may lead to pollution if it contains dangerous chemicals. Aims of irrigation. Irrigation aims to add water to the soil in order to supply moisture for plant growth. It helps to ensure the survival of crops during drought. It helps to cool the soil and the atmosphere, thereby making the environment more favorable for plant growth, and it helps to make early planting possible.